Ever since I shared about my 6-month experiment, I've been getting so many messages from you all. That was the experiment that I did when I was impacted by the hurricane. I didn't have access to internet. I wasn't able to post online. And yet I was still able to grow my audience and grow my business. And all of the conversations have been some form of frustration around feeling the need to constantly create more content, but then also feeling like your audience isn't growing, the business isn't growing, and it's either that you're like spending all the time creating more of the content or you are actually like feeling guilty about not creating the content, which is also not helping. So today I'm actually going to be sharing a training with you that I created around this specific topic. And I'm going to be sharing with you my organic content leverage framework. And the whole purpose of that is to actually help you stop feeling burnt out when it comes to content creation so you can grow your audience with more ease. So let's dive in. All right, welcome. So today, this training is called How Online Business Owners Can Build Their Audience Without Creating More Content. And the entire purpose is for you to discover how to use the organic content leverage strategy to make this simple for you. And yes, I totally have slides in front of me. This is a legit training. And so let's freaking go. So, if you are wondering if you are in the right place, let me just break this down for you really quickly. If you have an online business, then hello, you're in the right place, whether you're a coach, course creator, but essentially you would need to be someone who is currently feeling like you are struggling to attract new people, new audience members to your business. If you've been feeling overwhelmed by different marketing tactics that have been taking a lot of time and energy but haven't quite yielded the results you wanted, or you're spending tons of hours on social media with very little engagement, you're worried about the sustainability of your business without being able to consistently grow your audience, or maybe you're just tired of the constant pressure to create new content just in hopes of staying relevant for your audience. Regardless of where you are on that spectrum, if you resonate with any of those, then you are totally in the right place. So today, this is what I want you to learn from the time that we hang out. I want you to know how you can actually transform, take your content library that's already existing, content you've already created, so that you're not stuck in this constant creation cycle, because that's not what we're here for. And then also to release a lot of the content overwhelm, because I know from the phase when I was in this place of constantly creating, feeling like I needed to do things a very specific way, there was so much time and energy that was spent. And time is the one thing you can't get back. Another thing I want you to take away from today is to actually be able to build an audience magnet so that you're able to attract your ideal people to you without it being a constant like time exchange on your part. And then most importantly, like I said, leveraging your existing content, because there's so much growth that can happen from what you've already created, and it's just a matter of knowing how to use that, how to position it so that it's something that you can constantly get growth from. And new people who discover you can also get the benefit of the gold that you have already created. So that's what we're diving into. Now, if you're in love with the idea of spending hours creating content, even if you're not getting the results you really want, if that's what you want to keep doing, you're probably not going to love this training, and that's totally okay. If you are okay having inconsistent audience growth, like the up and down is something that your nervous system can handle well, then also not for you. And if you are pretty set in your ways and don't want to try a new approach, I will just be super transparent. This is just probably not going to be your jam. So, what I want to share with you first is that I feel like anyone can talk about anything that they've done in their business, but I really want you to know where I'm coming from with this, because I think it actually makes quite a big difference. Something that I want to talk to you about is how this has impacted my life And the only reason that I include this is not actually to share my story, but I do have this philosophy around who we actually pay attention to when it comes to like business, mentorship, and things like that. And I know for me personally, if I can't see some element of myself or I admire or like the way that someone has set up their business, the way it runs for them, or the way that their life is designed, normally the system, the strategy, the process just falls flat because that's the whole context that I think makes it work. And there has definitely been times in my life when I've implemented the strategies of someone who was running their business in a way that honestly long term I couldn't see myself doing. And so I just want to give you this context around like where I'm coming from when it comes to this. So at the beginning of last year, I had a new baby. We were pretty isolated, I would say, in terms of location. Like we didn't have family around us. And I was on a freaking mission, okay? I was very committed to showing up all the time in different ways, collabs with other people. I was posting 3 to 5 times a week. I was doing all of these things that you might actually be doing currently, or maybe you've done in the past. And it was not without sacrifice, okay? Sometimes it would be I'm just trying to work in the like whenever there's a nap time, if we could catch it. And sometimes it was, I'm just going to stay up late at night to get this posted, even if it's at 11 p.m. And it all, I would say, worked until we hit back to back sleep regressions. And that was when it really dawned on me that, holy cow, this is really not sustainable. What have I been doing? But I didn't really know how I wanted to change things. And so, since I made a lot of these changes, it looks so different now. Like, I don't, if you go to my Instagram, you're not going to see a post every single day. You aren't going to see me in my stories every single day. And so it's really given me time back without changing the impact that I can have. And depending on where you're connected with me in the business, you are actually like this training will probably give you that kind of like inception feeling of, oh, I see how it's all connected now because this is something that I'm actively using in all the places. And it's just giving me so much more freedom. But for my audience, it's made it where things have such a deeper impact. And it's not from me having to constantly create things and then them go into no man's land collecting dust on the internet. So this is how it's helped me. Like I said, I was posting 3 to 5 times a week. I was using those precious nap times, staying up late, and it felt like in that moment of trying to constantly find time to make all of this work, it literally felt like there was this riff or pull between creating more content and like surviving motherhood. And I say surviving because I feel like it created a pressure that wasn't there initially, but it was something that I thought I really needed to be doing. I did not know that there could be a different way. And so it created this pressure. And so then I reached this like breaking point, like I said, which was multiple sleep regressions. And it was exhausting. It made me question everything. I had doubt in the back of my head because I kept thinking to myself, like, okay, if I really want this, like I will figure out a way to make it work. But it just felt like there really wasn't a pathway that was making it simple. And I knew what I wanted to share with my audience. And so my engineering mind just started kicking in. And so I started to analyze, okay, what parts of my content are actually performing well? I used to do different data reviews before, just to like in terms of messaging of what do I incorporate going forward. But I started to do it with a different intent in mind. What if there was a way to actually use the content that was going well and to actually start to leverage that content so that I didn't have to constantly create new stuff, like new ideas, new angles, new all of this. And so I was thinking, how do I go from this content creation phase to a strategic mind when it comes to how I show up for my audience? This is what I did. I started to focus on repurposing, what I call strategic content usage. And that helped me go from this stressed out content creator to a business owner who could actually grow my audience while also enjoying my life. And this is something that I've helped my clients do before. And it's so funny because I think sometimes we're so close to the things that we do where it's so easy to diagnose these things in other people. And then it takes some extreme circumstance to happen where we're like, wait a second, what am I thinking? I can do this for myself. So there's a couple different things to this. There's the system development side, which is leveraging the existing content, taking it from this content creation to being more strategic. And then it's also focusing on repurposing and content distribution. And yeah. So this changed the entire interaction and the way that I show up for my business because I chose to have audience growth actually be the core strategy of what I'm doing versus just staying in that constantly creating, constantly needing to do that. And I'm someone who there's definitely moments I have when I'm just super inspired to make content. So I'm not saying that if you are like that as well, that this is, oh, you can't create anything new. But I'm more so talking about the frustration of that forced energy that comes with having to create something new and feeling like it's just never really getting you where you want to go. Okay. So once I started to make audience growth core part of my strategy, it completely changed the way I interacted with my business. And the nice part is, this is not something that requires you to be a marketing savant or a tech wizard. In fact, if you have tech challenges, hello, that's what I'm here for. And really, it was just a really smart way of building audience. And trust me, if I was able to do this as a completely sleep deprived new mom, still can you? Okay. Because I am not a marketing guru. And while I consider myself like I can learn anything, I'm an engineer by background, I can navigate tech. This is really not about being a tech wizard. It was more so just being open to having a smarter way to build an audience and being open to breaking the fucking rules. Okay. So let's freaking dive in to the actual framework. Okay. So there's 4 steps to growing your audience without having to create more content. The 4 steps are content audit and performance tracking. So this is your existing content is what I'm talking about. So the first step is to take your existing content, do a content audit and a performance tracking on that content. Then you're going to create your strategic repurposing system. Then you will have an automated audience nurturing process, and that will lead to your continuous optimization. These 4 steps is what I call my organic content leverage framework. And it has saved me so much freaking time. And I am now just, I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. What was I doing with my time and energy? But it's okay. We're here now and we get to take this lesson and learn it and incorporate it as you see fit. Okay. What I want to tell you first before I even dive into this is that if you are someone who struggles with perfection and wanting to get everything exactly right, this will be your enemy in this process. Because what I really want you to do is to just allow yourself to let this be easy. I'm going to give you the framework, the steps that I follow, and it's just for you to stay as much out of your head. And if it helps, you can listen to this process and then come back to it, and maybe that will help it land better. But I understand that for a lot of people who are in this space, this is very different than what you've probably typically done. I've heard of something similar being used when it comes to figuring out what you want to say, but not necessarily in terms of actually growing your audience. Okay, so let's really break this down. Okay, so the first step is essentially to do a content audit. What I want you to do is wherever you have been posting all of your gold, sharing all of your wisdom, I want you to actually go back and find what are the hidden gems that you've been creating. What content really resonates with your audience? Now, your data will tell you this. I've talked a lot about data in recent episodes, but essentially you can look at this from every business has a baseline. So typically, when you post or share content, because I don't know where you're doing this, can change for a lot of people, whether you're doing this in email, podcast, if it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, like you might be looking at different data specifically, but I want to just give you an overview of what you're really looking for. Every business has a baseline. And what that means is typically when you post, you're probably within a certain range of maybe every single time I post on Instagram, I get between 10 to 50 likes or something like that. And I get however many, like, I have this many comments, or I would get a couple of DMs from it. Okay, I will be back. So every single post has this data. And even if you're not posting, every piece of content you put out, there's data that comes from it, right? And the goal here is to have a systematic way for you to know what pieces that you have created are the most powerful, they resonate the most, it gets people to move. From this baseline, this data that's associated with stuff that you've already posted, you are looking for variations. Is there anything that performs a lot higher than your baseline? That's a really good indicator that that is a really strong piece of content, and it's something that's driving your audience's behavior when it comes to your content. So if we're back to that Instagram example, I'm just pulling mine up so I can see exactly where it is. You go to your profile. If you go to your professional dashboard, you can literally look up your insights, and you can go to content you've created. And there's so many different time frames you can do this from. So if you are in the boat where you have not created content recently, if it's been like a month or two hiatus, no worries. You can do last 7 days, last 30 days, last 3 months, 6 months, year, 2 years. Okay. I think that captures just about everyone. Then there's an option of what metric you want to look at from it. So you can look at shares, follows, reach, and things like that. And something that I like to pay attention to, this is a tangent, but when it comes to reach, I actually like to see how much of my reach were my followers versus people who are new finding me, because depending on what your goal is right now, if your goal is really to engage your audience, typically there are specific types of content that you're creating that's going to do that more effectively versus when you're trying to grow your audience, you need to make sure that you're reaching new audiences and that they're still taking action based on what they've seen from you. Okay, I think you get this part. So essentially, whole goal to summarize this is like we're looking for the hidden gems that you have in your content. And I want you to develop a reliable method for identifying which pieces of your content is doing well. And like I said, that data is going to change based on what you're using. But what I would say is that you're looking for behaviors that lead to the actual outcome you want them to take, right? So if you are doing sales emails or you're promoting something, then obviously we need people to open, we need people to be clicking, or we need people to be responding to you. So you're only tracking metrics that actually matter. This is not like how many views did it get, because that's nice, but views are not what pays the bills. We're looking for actual behavior that indicates that there is a high level of interest in what you're doing, and it's actually like them taking an action and a step forward. Okay, cool. So you've done your content audit on whatever platform you're using. The next step is strategic repurposing and to have a system around it. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. So I'm going to give a couple different examples. So the most, I think, like the fundamental of this one and the way that I like to use it is just like breathing life into old content, like refreshing it, reusing it. And you can do this at a certain frequency. So in the past, when I've really been focusing on using that method for this, It's been about every 6 months where I will literally have a tracker that has all of my content in there. I know my key metrics, so I know which ones performed better than others. And literally in 6 months, my project management software would let me know, hey, if you want to reuse this piece of content today, take a look at it. And normally what happened is I was able to come up with either a new perspective or like I had a fresh idea around that same topic. This is really helpful if you feel like you are having one of those days when you don't know what to say, because normally in that time frame there you've changed as a person, you've evolved, you've grown, so you have a new perspective and a fresh take to add to it. And so that's one way that you can do it. And it doesn't have to actually be you refreshing content. That's just one way that I like to do it, because I feel like a lot of times we've grown so much that we have a new take, and it kind of is cool to see how much it evolves over time without it being this time intensive process of I have to recreate all this stuff. Now, another way that I do this a lot is, for me, I tend to express myself verbally. So, recording my podcast episode and then letting a software like Descript convert that into a blog, and taking the podcast episode and repurposing those videos into different places. Now, what makes this an actual system, it's going to be talked about in step 3, but I want you to know that it's not just about you putting your content different places, because the important part of this is, yes, you can take your content, move it to different places, but we really want to implement step 3, which is going to bring in the audience part. So the main takeaway from step 2 is like, let your one piece of content that you created, your creative energy that you had whenever you made it, spread farther than just one piece of content, whether that means you refreshing it later or you actually putting it different places. But that doesn't mean that you have to recreate something different. I allow this to be super simple, and a lot of times I'm so surprised how far a piece of content can go, because it can go from, oh, I had this idea for my podcast. I recorded a podcast episode. Therefore, I also have a video, and then I have a blog. And then I also have content ideas for my social media posts. And my social media post pushes people to my podcast. My podcast has the link to get people to join my audience and things like that. Or it turns into an idea for some value adding piece of content I can give people. So there's so much you can do here, but I just want you to really start to see all the ways that you can breathe life into your existing content library. That's not just like you posting more, 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 and instead leveraging what we talked about in step 1, the best content you have, and making sure that's getting all the places so that you can actually start to grow your audience. So step 3 is all about the automated audience nurturing. And so this is essentially having the systems for your audience to grow. And there's so many benefits to having this type of system in place. For one, your audience's journey will always be next level. It's the type of thing where people will maybe love what you did on your podcast, and then they're seeing that you're posting about it. So maybe you're reaching them in another way. And then you're having a training on it. And when people come and they recognize that there is some experience they're having that they don't desire, or they want help with something, or they want to improve something, and they're seeing you as the authority, as the expert in whatever it is that you do, show up in these different places and support them in different ways, it's capturing so much. It's capturing different learning styles. It's also making sure that you're staying within their awareness, so you're top of mind for them. Because if they knew that what you're doing is a solution for them, then they're already interested. And our job is really just to allow our zone of genius to literally just be around them and accessible for them in whatever way they want to do that. And the more effectively we can do that, the more effectively we grow our audience, our businesses grows, and all is well. So at a fundamental level, you can kind of look at this as creating an evergreen funnel that works 24/7, but I actually want to go a little bit deeper with you than that because that's so surface level. So in general, a good like this is the way that I think of this is for one, it's really important to have segments in your audience. A lot of people talk about segmenting when it comes to your email list, and if that's where you're hosting all of your audience, amazing. But you really should have like certain interest groups that they came to you from. I feel like there's so few of us that truly only have one very specific thing we're focusing on. Even me, I in general focus on business systems and getting efficiency back in your business, but there's so many different parts. Some people are interested in what I do because they want to grow their audience without spending more time. Some people want to learn how to grow in paid strategies. Some people want to learn how to foster their client journey behind the scenes when it comes to their delivery, have better retention, things like that. Like there's different sub interest under the whole umbrella of system structure. You get it. So when you are nurturing someone, when you're giving someone the content that they're already looking for, it's so important that we're giving them what they're looking for and we're not switching it up on them. It's not like you told the waiter, hey, I would like spaghetti and meatballs, and then they brought you chicken Alfredo. Because, of course, you're going to be disappointed because you're like, what the heck? This is what I told you I wanted. I did not say I wanted to get something else. So, we want to do the same thing for our audience and we want to make sure we're meeting them where they're at. So, segmenting is very, very important. Then, it's also important to have some type of automated messaging process for them, a sequence for them to follow. In other words, a curated journey for your audience. When you're able to curate their journey, oh my gosh, I just feel like it's kind of like a warm virtual embrace of, okay, you really got me. That's what it's signaling to them. And this is something that is not just like a whim for you. I feel like when they express interest and then there's not a lot that happens after, it's kind of a letdown. And to be honest, it's unrealistic to expect someone in your audience to just wait for whenever you pick that back up. The natural behavior of people is that if there's something that you want to change, improve, evolve, if you don't have your next step in front of you, you are going to just look somewhere else. And so, if you've experienced that where maybe someone came to you, they expressed interest in what you were doing in some capacity, and then they end up going with someone else, it's probably what was happening. And this is where we can catch that. And then obviously there's data and things behind this where we can optimize it as well. But it's so important to have this. These need to work even when you are not working. A big part of the 6 month experiment when I didn't have internet is that there was an entire journey for them already curated. And when I mean, it's an extreme situation to not have internet for 30 days. And so I'm not saying that the goal is to design something so that you're prepared for something that extreme. But I say that to say that it worked in such an extreme scenario. And so that's what's important for you is that it's actually something that will work even when you're not, whether you're pulled away for family things, for personal reasons, or if you just need a break and you need a personal day that you know that things are still moving forward. And then obviously, I think this goes without saying, but a really big benefit of this is that it converts people who are just getting to know you into actual clients, customers, and that's really where the transformation happens in your world, anyways, right? Okay, cool. Now, okay, step 4. Last but definitely not least, continuous optimization. In other words, data. We definitely cannot ignore the data. I talked about data in a couple different steps, but there's an overall data optimization that has to happen with this process in order for it to really start to perform exceptionally well. It will perform good from the beginning, but if you want to really get everything and milk it for all that it's worth, it's so important that you understand the language that your business speaks and your business speaks in data. So, if you've ever been in this place in your business where you were kind of like, I'm not getting the end result that I want, and you've been trying to troubleshoot which part is it that you need to start working on, and you're going off of gut feel, that's one way of doing it. But another way is to actually know the performance metrics of your business. And so that you know without a shadow of a doubt what you should be tweaking. And that's such a powerful place to move from. I know sometimes people will, this is where I tend to hear things like, but I'm not a numbers person, or how do I know what to look for? And that is definitely something that we can dive into more. But we're looking for performance metrics here. And when we're running a business, it's so important that we know what's working, what's not working, so that we know what to actually focus our attention on, especially if you're operating as a solo entrepreneur in your business, meaning that you don't have a full team. You may have a VA, but for the most part, it's you running the show. So it's important to know those metrics so that you know what to change. And it doesn't have to be this whole guessing thing. Yes, there's testing involved. Like, you will be the scientist in your business, but then even the scientists, they get the results from the experiment and then they make tweaks based on those results. And so if you're not making tweaks based on results that you're getting, that's where we see like stagnation and plateaus and long periods of time where not a lot has changed in terms of audience growth and things like that. Okay. So with these metrics, with this data that you're getting, you are going to look for winners and losers. We talked about having that baseline in your business, which you will know from that initial review of how your content performs. If you don't already know it, a lot of people just know in general, this is typically the type of engagement I get, or this is the type of responses I get. And once you know that, your job is so simple, should you choose to accept it, which is to double down on what's working and to drop everything that's not performing, or tweak, drop or tweak. And the only time that I really recommend actively trying to tweak something that is not working is if it's like a passion based thing. There are certain topics, themes that you might be talking about, since we're talking about content specifically, that you are just so passionate about. And it's worth that trial and error to figure out how you can talk to your audience about this, because that's what you know you're meant to be doing. But if it's just a topic in your business and you're just seeing, oh, like it's really not performing every single time it's coming up, I'm not getting people into this offer, people are not going forward, they're not expressing interest, let's double down on what's working. You will get so much farther, because if not, it's just like you're spending so many energy cubes and you don't have to. So, all right. In summary, right? The complete system is this: you're auditing for your winning content. You are multiplying and expanding the reach that you have based on how you repurpose. You're creating nurturing systems for your content where you're putting it. So there's some way that people are getting nurtured deeper always. It never just stops at your Instagram page. It doesn't just stop at a podcast episode. There is an entire journey that people are going on. And this is going to change for every single business based on your business strategy and your business structure. And if you are wondering, like, I've been thinking about my business structure, I don't know if I like it. My recommendation is that I want you to look at the values you have, literally like life business values. And I want you to look at your goals and vision and where you want to go in your business. And where those two things intersect is where your business strategy should really be coming from. I think a lot of people just follow what they've heard someone use, or we get started in some process that we really don't love, but we're committed to seeing it through. And we've been told that we just have to show up and do the things. But if it's really not aligned with who you are on a fundamental level and an identity level, which comes from those two things, then long term, it's not building a sustainable business. And for me, My goal is not to have an unsustainable model where there's these like huge peaks and huge valleys. It's like the goal is sustainability. It's so much better for your nervous system. You can relax more, trust more, and you feel more solid as you're moving through things. It's less of that reactive method to how you're running your business. And then finally, is obviously refining based on data. So after any system you set up, it literally doesn't matter what it is. There's always testing, there's always refining happening because things are changing all the time. Your audience is changing what they've learned. Everyone's evolving along with you. And so that's a natural part of the process. Now, I am not sure what brought you to this training episode. If you showed up because you're feeling frustrated with your marketing efforts, if you feel like they're not bringing you the results that you really want, or if you're just in this deep trench of I'm creating content all the freaking time, I feel so burnt out, I feel overwhelmed by the constant demands of creating more content, or maybe you've just heard me talk about sustainable audience growth before, or you were interested based on the 6-month experiment, or you just wanted to hang out and learn something new. But regardless, what I can tell you is that when you choose to have audience growth as a cornerstone of your business, everything is going to change. It's essentially like having an entire business makeover. Literally, what comes to mind is like all the makeover shows where it's this is before and this is after, and it's just holy cow, that was there the whole time. It's like that. The difference is a lot of what you need, like you already have what it takes because you've already been creating content. So it's not about you going and creating a whole new body of work. It's just about leveraging what you've already created in the right way so that it can start to work for you. And that's how you start to get to this place of more ease in your business, more spaciousness. So, my biggest recommendation for you is get started. Take the steps that I shared with you today and start implementing them because the sooner you do, the sooner they will start working for you and the sooner you will start to see, holy cow, why didn't I start doing this before? I think sometimes that's the problem with things that sound really simplistic when you're listening to them is it makes us think, oh, okay, yeah, well, I'll get to it one day. And I'm like, no, 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 go do it now. Because here's the truth. Everything that I've shared with you, there's nothing in here that's theory. It's not fluff. This is based on what I've done to generate consistent audience growth. And I tested this in the most extreme fashion, not on purpose. And I don't even recommend testing it the way that I did. But the benefit of doing it and having had that experience is that I know without a shadow of doubt that this works, that this will help you get your time back. This will put an end to a lot of the content pressure, and it will help you build sustainability in your business for sure. So, this system that I'm talking about is very replicatable and it's very duplicatable in your business, regardless of what your business structure is, which is honestly my favorite part because that's one of my personal pet peeves is like just blanket copying business systems and strategies when we don't know if that's actually the best fit for our business or we haven't even taken the time to think about that. So from this point going forward, now that you have this information, you have a choice. You can choose to take what I gave you, which it's so good. I wish I had this from the beginning. It would have saved me a lot of time. But you can take what I gave you and you can start to implement in your business yourself, DIY it, use trial and error, and I know that you'll be able to figure this out. Or another option, if you're someone who's actually, Jenae, I would love to have your eyes on my business. I would love to be able to implement this faster. I would love to get feedback on how I'm implementing this in my business. Then there's also my organic reach engine. What is organic reach engine, you might be wondering? It is a step-by-step audience growth system for you to implement into your business, and it's designed to really take you by the hand and help you to transform your content strategy. And it's the quickest way that I have personally found to go from content chaos all over the place, always creating something, always thinking of new ideas, to having an organized way to have strategic growth in your business. And what it is, it's going to be 5 weeks We're going to be diving really deep into what we talked about, but also so much more of actually the setting it up behind the scenes, what this looks like, looking over your business. This includes step-by-step guidance. There's a supportive community, and really the entire goal of it is less time spent on creating content, more time on growing your audience so that you have more confidence when it comes to marketing and that you're able to focus on the core of your business, which is so important when it's just us. And I can't remember now if I said this or not, but if you are hearing this in real time, then you actually get to be part of this being ran live. So it's actually being co-created with you, which is a really phenomenal process. And I feel like you'll get so much more support that way. So super exciting. I just want to let you know about that. If you want to know the details of what we're going to be including right now, it is going to include CRM mastery. Essentially, how do you actually manage your audience? We're going to be talking about creating high value audience attractors. We're going to be talking about how do you build systems that work while you sleep based on how you're doing your audience growth. And then obviously all the automations and the optimization. How do you read your data, data dashboards, all the things that you want, but probably don't want to have to create yourself. And I know that this is going to save you so much time and energy. So if this is something that resonates with you, that you're very interested in, then just check out the link in my bio for current pricing so that this is something that no matter when someone sees it, they can just go there and see the most up-to-date information. And yeah, we'll be starting super soon with that. I'm so excited for those of you who do decide to join me. And I know that this will make an incredible difference in your business. Something else that I'm really excited to add in actually is automation quick wins, like automation tutorials. A lot of people, after they see how I run the back end of my business, are just like, wait, but like, how did you do that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so easy. There will be implementation guides, like dashboards. I'm just so excited to nerd out with people on this because literally January 2024, I wasn't fully leveraging this and your girl was stressed. Okay. Like, mom of a new baby, going through all those phases, being far away from family, so not getting any time really outside of nap times when they came and things like that. This was something that gave me so much more spaciousness back in my business. And now, as I prep for another one to come, I'm so at peace knowing that I have this in my back pocket. And I just think this is so valuable. And I'm very excited to share this with you. With that, take what I've taught you, go implement something. If you want more support, then check out the link. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then you can just check out the link below. You don't have to even bother going to my Instagram. And yeah, so I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me for this training and for just expressing interest in the organic content leverage framework. It's something that I know will help you get so much time back, and I will see you around the interwebs.